A social issue is a problem that influences many citizens within a society. Many individuals experience one or more social problems in their day-to-day lives. Some people are poor and unemployed. Some are in poor health. Many people have family problems. Some people commit crimes. Therefore, a social issue can be defined as a common problem within a society, and many people try to solve them. The concept of social problem was first developed by Fuller and Mayers in 1914. According to them, those conditions or situations which members of the society regards as a threat to their values are considered as social issues. When considering about social issues, poverty is one of the biggest social issues in the world.
In simple terms, we can define poverty as the condition where the basic needs of a family like food, shelter, clothing and education are not fulfilled. It can lead to other problems such as poor literacy, unemployment, malnutrition. A poor person is not able to get education due to lack of money and therefore remains unemployed. An unemployed person is not able to buy enough and nutritious food for his family and their health decline. A weak person lacks the energy required for the job. A jobless person remains poor only. Thus, we can say that poverty is the root cause of other problems. 1 in 10 people in developing countries still lives on less than $1.9 a day. Several projects are implementing to eradicate poverty. Even the first Sustainable Development Goal of the United Nations is no poverty.
There are several definitions of poverty depending on the context of situation it is placed in, and usually references a state or conditions in which a person or community lacks the financial resources and essentials for a certain standard of living. According to United Nations, fundamentally, poverty is a denial of choices and opportunities, a violation of human dignity. It means lack of basic capacity to participate effectively in society. It means not having enough to feed and clothe the family, not having a school or clinic to go, not having the land on which to grow one's food or a job to earn one's living, not having access to credit. It means insecurity, powerlessness and exclusion of individuals, households and communities. It means susceptibility to violence, and it often implies living on marginal or fragile environments without access to clean water or sanitation.
Poverty implies low income and struggling to meet basic needs. There are two main types of poverty: absolute poverty and relative poverty. Absolute poverty is a condition characterized by severe deprivation of basic human needs, including food, safe drinking water, sanitation facilities, health, shelter, education, and information. It depends not only on income but also on access to services. Definition of absolute poverty do not change with the economic growth. Usually, if average income rise, then more of the population should be lifted out of absolute poverty. Relative poverty is when household received 50% less than average household incomes, so they do have some money but still not enough money to afford anything above the basics. This type of poverty is, on the other hand, changeable depending on the economic growth of the country. Relative poverty is sometimes described as relative deprivation because the people falling under this category are not living in total poverty, but they are not enjoying the same standard of life as everyone else in the country. It can be TV, internet, clean clothes, a safe home, a healthy environment free from abuse or neglect, or even education. Relative poverty can also be permanent, meaning that certain families have absolutely no chance of enjoying the same standard of living as other people in the same society currently have access to. They are basically trapped in a low relative income box.
More than 10% of the world's population live in extreme poverty. But do you know why? There are several reasons for poverty, such as inadequate access to clean water and nutritious food, no access to livelihood or jobs, conflict, inequality, poor education, climate change, lack of infrastructure, limited capacity of the government, lack of reserves. Currently, more than 2 billion people don't have access to clean water at home, while over 800 million suffer from hunger. You might think that poverty causes hunger and prevents people from accessing clean water. But hunger and water insecurity are also big reasons why people struggle to escape extreme poverty. If a person does not get enough food, they simply don't have the strength and energy needed to work, while lack of access to food and clean water can also lead to preventable illnesses like diarrhea. When people must travel far distances to clinics or spend little money remains on medicine, it drains already vulnerable populations of money and assets and can knock a family from poverty into extreme poverty. Even if clean water sources are available, they are often located far from poor rural communities. This means that women and girls collectively spend some 200 million hours every day walking long distances to fetch water. That precious time could be used working or getting an education to help secure a job later in life. Without a job or a way to make money, people will face poverty. But it's easy to assume that if someone wants a job, they could have one. That just is not true, particularly in developing and rural parts of the world. Dwindling access to productive lands and overexploitation of resources like fish or minerals is putting increasing pressure on many traditional livelihoods.
Here are some of the characteristics of poverty. The world has made huge efforts in overcoming global poverty. Since 1990, more than 1.2 billion people have risen out of extreme poverty. Now, 9.2% of the world survives on $1.90 a day or less, compared to nearly 36% in 1990. Democratic Republic of Congo, Mozambique, Uganda, Tajikistan, Yemen, Haiti, Ethiopia and Tanzania are some of the countries most affected by poverty. How will COVID-19 impact the world's poorest people? It is one of the most talked about topics in the world today. The COVID-19 pandemic threatens to preserve decades of progress in the fight against global poverty and income inequalities, and it will be a threat to the future generation of children. while the full impact of the COVID-19 pandemic is unknown. The World Bank estimates that an additional 88 million to 115 million people will fall into extreme poverty in 2020, with the total rising to as many as 150 million by 2021.
Sri Lanka is working hard to reduce poverty with its partners such as the United Nations Development Programme and the World Bank. The country has faced a number of development barriers such as a 3-decade civil war which ended in 2009 and a devastating tsunami in 2004. While sustainable development is ongoing in the country, poverty in Sri Lanka is still a significant issue. In Sri Lanka, poverty figures refers to the share of individuals whose household per capita consumption falls below the official poverty line. This poverty line headcount index is the standard measure of the incidence of poverty. The headcount index is calculated by taking into account all of the food and non-food expenditures collected in the household income and expenditure survey. Differences in the cost of living across different districts and the number of people in the household are also considered. According to the Department of Census and Statistics, Sri Lanka, in 2016, 4.1% of the population lives below the national poverty line, and also the proportion of employed population below $1.90 in 2019 is 0.3%. For every 1,000 babies born in Sri Lanka in 2018, 7 died before their 5th birthday. Poverty consists of more than the lack of income and productive resources to ensure sustainable livelihoods. Its manifestations include hunger and malnutrition, limited access to education and other basic services, social discrimination and exclusion, as well as the lack of participation in decision making. Various social groups bear disproportionate burden of poverty. United Nations 2013 agenda acknowledges that eradicate poverty in all its forms and dimensions, including extreme poverty, is the greatest global challenge and an indispensable requirement for sustainable development.